In earlier videos, we talked about the 4 paths of the ROI curve that every IT and AI project goes through. We've talked about the transformation stack and the 3 layers there, including the system layer, the AI layer, and the human layer. And now we're going to talk about what does it take to actually drive behavior change and what you need to be doing at each of the 3 phases of your implementation. One of the most damaging assumptions I've seen for years across many clients and many IT projects is that go live is the goal. If we just get to go live, the hard work is done. And the reality is, getting to go live is when the hard work is just beginning. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 3 key phases of your IT success and what you should be doing at each one to make sure that your technology implementation, your AI implementation delivers value for years to come. Hi, my name is Jason Whitehead, and for over 20 years now, I've been helping executives and IT leaders ensure that technology is implemented and adopted in their organizations in a way that ensures it delivers value. If you've ever struggled to get your systems used or to achieve the outcomes and business results you're looking for, I'm here for you. Okay, let's jump in. If you haven't seen my earlier videos, here's the typical ROI chart that happens with any AI or system implementation. I'll go through this very quickly. Initially, when organizations are getting started, they have a bunch of upfront sunk costs as they're implementing technology, configuring it, getting data stuff, getting out the door. And on the day they go live, all they've done is maximize their sunk costs. They haven't gotten any value yet. And it's what happens next that matters. And there's 4 scenarios. One is the dead on arrival, where we get some people to use the system for a little while, but we never even break even. And eventually someone, probably a CRO or some senior executive, says, enough is enough. We're going to cancel the program and stop spending more money on it. The next option is some people start to use it and we get some value and come up the return curve, maybe break even, and then we'll get a little bit of value, but it's far less than our goal, far less than we were expecting, and still considered a failure. The third option, which is the honeymoon trap, we go live with this blue line, we hit our year 1 goal for success, but then we get busy and focused on other things, usage and value creation falls and falls and falls, and eventually we're back here in the failure zone. And just because you succeed at hitting your goal in 1 year doesn't mean you will year after year. And then finally, the green line, we come up, we hit our year 1 goal, and then we continue to focus on how systems are used and how we're evolving the organization as the systems themselves increase and improve, or the AI models adopt, or as the AI models emerge and change. And we make sure that we're doing the things necessary to make sure we continue to get value year 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this is the long game. And this is what really drives success and what really matters. If you ask a CEO 3 years after a system goes live if it was a success or not, they don't care about the day it went live. They don't care about how far you went in terms of on schedule, if you were on budget or not. They care of how much value you've gotten and was it worth their investment. So what are the 3 phases that we need to look at? Well, we'll start with the last one. What happens over the long term after go live? What's going to happen years 2, 3, 4, and 5 when we really get the proof of was this investment worth it, and is our business better off because of it? And then we want to look at what happens from go live through that critical first year. This is really key. This is when the change and transformation becomes real for most of the people in your organization. How quickly are they adopting the new systems and processes? How quickly are they using AI? How much value are they getting out of it? How quickly are they coming up to this year 1 goal? And is it happening in isolation with just a few early adopters? Or is it happening in mass with each team, department, division of your organization? And what can you do to drive that quick, effective usage that's key to getting the results that your organization needs? And then looking back at the very beginning, what has to happen before go live, even from when the first day the project is conceived, to make this happen? Where most organizations get in trouble, they ignore the long term, they actually ignore most of the middle piece, and they just focus on that initial go live. And that initial go live is usually just training people beforehand and getting them up and settled for like 2 or 3 months after the system goes live, and then everyone walks away. That's a mistake. So let's talk about what actually happens, or what needs to happen. And I've done this with clients. I've had clients bring me in 6 months before they even selected a vendor, and then we worked with them for the 1.5 years that it took to configure the technology to make sure we were ready to go to drive this long-term success. So let's talk about what needs to happen here. In the very beginning of the go live, you've got a lot of activities that you need to do. You need to identify who's going to be responsible in your organization at the most senior levels and be held accountable for ensuring the system is used, delivers measurable results, and sustains those results year after year after year after year. If you don't have that senior executive up there right up front, you're going to be in trouble, because without someone being accountable and being formally charged with making sure it's a success, it won't be. It's really important that you hear that. The next thing you need to look at, what does this success look like? How do we define that? What are the outcomes that we're looking to achieve? What are the business goals and results we're looking for? We have to identify those and be very clear on those, because that's going to drive everything else that we do. We need to be singularly focused on saying, what are all the things that need to come into place and align and get moving to make sure we can achieve those results? Most folks don't do that. What a lot of people do is they'll make some forecast up in a business case that gets used to approve the funding and then sits on a shelf and no one ever looks at again. That's a mistake. Then you have to look at, what are all the things that need to happen that we need to plan for to put in place a structure and a process for that long-term and short-term success? Because it's not going to happen on its own. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then finally, what most people don't understand is there are a lot of things that you can do in most organizations, especially if it's a long-term implementation, to decouple the transformation changes you need to make in your organization from the actual system go live. So there may be things that you could change, policies you could change, data you can clean up, new habits and behaviors you can develop even before that system goes live to help prepare you for the eventual transformation. And you should bring those forward and decouple them from the technology go live. It helps start the transformation earlier. It helps get people focused on the business outcomes and not the system. And it really will allow you to start to get some value sooner. The other thing that most people miss that needs to happen right in the very beginning, this is your opportunity to start to map through and identify what organizational barriers will prevent success. What are the things that fall outside of the end user's control that once the system goes live or the AI goes live, that will prevent them from using the new system and capabilities, even if they want to? So for example, I was working with one large organization that spent $40 million on an IT project, and they've been working on it for several years. And I went through and I asked all the questions of how we were going to train users and get them moving. And I asked one simple question, which was, what else needs to happen in your organization in order for you to use the system? And through that, we identified all kinds of blockers. Some teams had too many competing priorities that they just didn't have enough hours in the day to do the work that was required. Other teams had competing incentive systems, so they were actually going to be penalized if they used this system instead of doing the other work that was important to their managers. One department alone identified that they had 30,000 lines of custom code that would need to be rewritten, and they couldn't even start that until the new system was live because they needed the new system fields and mappings to be able to do the work that they needed to do. In this case, when I identified that there were 30,000 lines of code that were going to prevent this department from using the system, I immediately went to the executive sponsor and identified this. And his response was, oh shit, how did we miss this? We've got a big problem here. This system goes live in February. The executive who signed off on this and wrote a $40 million check is expecting people to use it in February. The soonest they can possibly use the system will be September. And that's if they don't do their day job for 6 months. The sponsor said, oh my God, you're right. People get fired over this. What do we need to do? How do we get ahead of this? So there are a lot of things that can come up that if you don't identify them, that will blindside you and you will never see it coming. Take this time beforehand to not just figure out a training program or a communication program, but to identify all the things that need to happen to drive behavior change and all the things that will get in your way that fall outside the user's control and how you're going to resolve those issues. It's really key. So that's before go live. Let's talk about the crucial at go live. And by at go live, I mean the period from the day the system turns on through the first 12 months. And this go live period is critical because this is when users and frontline staff members first get exposed to using the new technology, using the new systems, following the new processes, really embracing your AI, whatever it's going to be. This is when the transformation that they knew was coming becomes real because it actually starts to implement them. And this also starts the clock on how quickly they need to start changing their work behaviors and their work habits to make it a success and to make their new jobs a success because their jobs have evolved. there's a certain amount of support that you need to give during this period. There's a lot of activities that you can do and that frontline managers need to be doing to drive adoption and execution within their immediate team members. Many times, the frontline managers don't even know it's their job to make sure their teams are executing differently or performing their work differently. The single biggest driver of adoption and execution discipline is the immediate supervisor. And many times, they've never been asked to drive adoption within their team. They've never been asked to make sure their team is transforming how they do their job and when they do their job. They haven't been set a new metric for when their team needs to be showing results using the new technology or AI or systems. And they don't necessarily know what to do. So if you're going to hit the ground running in this critical at go live phase, you need to make sure that you've prepared for that and you've prepared the managers beforehand. There's a lot of setup work to make sure that happens. A couple other things to keep in mind. This is typically a period of massive disruption. You're rolling out new systems, you're rolling out new processes, you're changing how you're doing things, and inevitably something will get missed. Something will be broken that you didn't catch in testing. There's going to be some quick changes and gotcha moments in there. You need to have a plan, and you need to have a structure in place to make sure that you can handle these things and to respond to emerging needs and issues. People are learning about the new systems and process as they become real to capture best practice and figure out what's actually working and what's not, and figure out how you're going to share that across your organization. There's a lot of critical work that needs to be done to manage this initial transition effectively. So you got to plan for that. And then finally, as we already talked about, the critical after go live phase. And this I like to think of as month 13 plus after the system has gone live. What are the things that we need to address to make sure year after year after year, as systems changes, as process changes, as the technology changes, that we're continuing to get value all the way through this? If you look here on the green line, there's a lot of things that are going to change over this time, and most systems fall down here. They fail after go live, after that long game here. You're really at risk in this section if you don't do the things that need to be done. What does this look like? How can you say with certainty, here's what needs to happen 5 years down the road? Here's what we need to do today to be prepared for it. And one of the challenges I like to give folks is, if you were tasked with building a program structure that will be in place to ensure 5 years of success, could you do it? What are the skills you're going to need? What are the resources you're going to need? Who should be in charge of it? What's the budget that you're going to need? What are the activities that need to happen here? And if you can't say with confidence, this is what we need to put in place now, you're going to be in big trouble very soon. Probably year 2, 3, and 4. It's all going to fall apart. As one client said to me one time, my crystal ball's in the shop this week. I don't know what to do. So let's talk about what you can do instead. You don't know all of the specifics about what's going to change. You have a few things that you do know. You know there are going to be staffing changes in your organization. You know new hires are going to come in, people will transfer roles, people will leave the organization. You'll know there'll be new 5-year strategies and competitive focus for your company. You know your company is going to go through other turmoil. There might be new regulations coming out. There might be new competitors that come into your space that will change what needs to happen. There might be changes to your product or service line that you sell to your customers. So there are a lot of things that you know will change. You also have the known unknowns. We don't know what's going to emerge, but we know there will be technology changes. We know new opportunities for greatness will come up. We also know new challenges of, oh, wow, we didn't see this coming. How do we respond to that? And how do we get all of our people to respond to it? In the absence of a crystal ball with all the information, what you need to do is put in place the program, the team, and the structure with the skills and expertise you need to monitor the environment, be able to be proactive where you can, and be sure to respond to emerging opportunities and threats as they come along. You can plan for all of that, and you need to plan for all that. Because if you don't have a plan for how you're going to stay up here in the long-term success zone, I can guarantee you're going to come right back down here, back into the failure zone. Okay, I hope this was helpful. I hope you've learned a lot to think through the long-term process and structures you need to have in place, to think through some of what you need to do before go live, at go live, and after go live. There's a lot more detail, a lot more tactics to get into, but just by shifting your thinking right here, you're on the path to going for greatness. The organizations that win with AI and win with technology and systems, they don't treat it as a project. They treat it as an ongoing skill set and competency. They treat resiliency and the ability to adapt to emerging opportunities and threats as a core capability. And you need to build that in your organization. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or looking for more resources or looking for ways we can work together, go to my website, jasonwhitehead.me. I would love to partner with you and see how we can make your IT initiative a success.